Aloha and welcome to Live at the Legislature. I'm Richard Raposa, Director of Communications at the Hawaii State Senate. Each week we give you a chance to hear directly from state senators about issues, concerns, and legislation here at the state capitol. Yesterday, the governor delivered his annual State of the State address, introducing some interesting initiatives involving housing, education, and the local. Joining us to discuss the governor's speech this morning are Senator Gilbert Keith Agaran, who's the Vice Chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. He represents Maui. And East Honolulu Senator Stanley Chang, who is the Chair of the Senate Housing Committee. Good morning, Senators.
Good morning.
Senator Chang, let's start with you. Some of the governor's proposals sounded familiar to you, didn't they?
Yeah, so the governor highlighted an affordable housing plan that I've been working on for a long time, which I'm very grateful for. We have a need for about 65,000 new units of housing to solve our housing shortage. How are we going to get there? By taking existing state-owned lands near the rail transit stations, building a ton of density, and selling those units at cost to Hawaii residents, and producing enough of this inventory that we can actually solve the problem, not just nibble around the edges anymore.
He talked about the 99-year lease proposal. How does that work to control the cost?
So basically, if it's a state-owned land, the state hasn't paid anything for it, at least not recently. So there's a zero-cost basis for the land. The state would then sell you a 99-year lease, which would make it a lot more affordable than actually having to acquire land and sell it to you fee simple. And we can also sell it at cost. We don't have to make a profit at the state. So it's going to be more affordable. And then on top of that, because we don't want the buyers to make windfall profits, 75% of every transaction on the secondary market, if you were to sell it, all of that upside, 75% of the upside goes back to the state.
So on subsequent sales, would that have to be qualifying buyers, or is it just open market sales?
That's right. They would have to be qualifying buyers, and to be a qualified buyer, you'd have to be a Hawaii resident who owns no other real property and who would be an owner-occupant. However, you do not have to be a first-time home buyer, and you also would not have any type of income cap. You could be wealthy, you could be poor, everyone should have access to buy these units, which I'm hoping will be priced at about $300,000 for a 3-bedroom unit.
And have areas been identified as targets for this, or is it just kind of generally in the transit route?
We're talking about properties that are within half a mile of the rail transit stations that are currently being planned, of which there are many across the state, but none have been specifically identified right now.
Okay, sounds like a great plan. What are the hidden bugaboos? What could go wrong?
You know, I think the $300,000 figure is a very aggressive figure. I think it's possible, but it's going to be, I think, hard to get. Another issue is we want socioeconomic diversity within these units. You know, I think the first several thousand of these units are going to go to folks who already own homes, who are going to be empty nesters, or folks buying them for their kids, maybe here or on the mainland. And that's fine, but we also want to make sure that folks who are, you know, not so well off have a shot too. And so I'm also introducing a bill to do an opt-out automatic housing savings program. Basically, it's not mandatory. You have the chance to opt out of it by checking a box, but you would be offered, every working person in Hawaii would be offered an automatic housing savings account, which a certain percentage of their income would go to every pay period. And they could then potentially use those funds for the down payment for something like this, or even rent on the private market, or you know, a down payment on the private market. And
those funds would be administered by the state once they're taken out, or are they put in a private account someplace?
They would be administered by the state. Oregon already has a similar program for retirement savings, and so we'd be following their model.
Senator Keith Agaran, the governor also had a proposal about the transient accommodations tax. Can you describe what his proposal was?
Well, I think we were kind of surprised to hear about it, because I know that the counties for a long time have been trying to get more of the TAT, hotel room tax, really. But when you look at the real details of the bill, which I finally got to look at this morning, it's not as much as what I think the counties are expecting. If you look at some of the proposals that the counties are submitting this year, they're asking for about 45% of the general fund portion of the hotel room tax. What the governor is proposing is 23.1%. So really, it'll be based on last year's collections, it will give the counties an additional $7 million this coming year. The good thing about this entire idea, though, it is shifting us back to the percentage, the basically sharing the TAT completely with the counties. It's not the 45% that it used to be, but it's a start.
So as somebody representing the neighbor island, are you looking at this as a first step, or you want to push it further?
Well, I think that if I had my druthers, I think we really do want more. Basically, what this does is it'll give the neighbor island counties about $1 million more each year of the TAT. It'll give the city about $3 million more.
So for a county like Maui, what kind of impact does that $1 million have?
Well, I think 1.5 million for Maui is a good number. Obviously, we'd like more. I think the mayor's proposal is he's requesting an additional 14 million. So
so they're a little bit apart on that.
yeah. So I think when we discuss the bills that are being considered, I think you'll see the counties may not be as supportive. I think they'd probably like to have a larger percentage allocated for the counties.
Well, looking at it from the point of view of the Ways and Means Committees, on a statewide basis, what about that loss of funding to the state?
Well, I think because of what he's proposing, it basically comes down to about $14 million, $7 million that's now going to go for an additional $7 million for state parks, for beaches, and for our trail system, and $7 million more for the counties. So we're talking about $14 million. I think when we were looking at this, I think we were thinking it was about 45%, which meant that we were looking at about $380 to $400 million. So I think 14 million is something that we can deal with. Obviously, the counties would like more.
Okay, well, thinking back on yesterday's speech, was there anything that wasn't in the speech that you were hoping to hear? A direction for the state or a proposal?
You know, the governor only has limited time to give his address, but I thought that it was a pretty bold statement of some new programs that is, I think, a departure from years past, and I was personally grateful that he highlighted the affordable housing plan, because we do need to plug the housing shortage. Singapore does have the world's best public housing system, and this is based on their model.
Now, when you talk about that, obviously that offers a lot of jobs for the construction industry and whatnot. Is that going to be a big economic driver, do you think?
You know, it probably would be, but that's not really the focus. The focus of this is to take public housing, to take housing from something that we perceive as an investment, as a wealth creator, and turn it into more of a public service, the way that public schools are, or roads. You know, these should be produced for everybody, not just the very wealthy or the very poor.
Mm-hmm. Neighbor island concerns, or if you want to add to that?
Well, I think I thought that his proposal for pre-K classrooms was bold. But I was hoping that he would bring that, he would cover the entire part of education, meaning there was no mention of the University of Hawaii in the speech. And I was kind of surprised by that, because I would think that you want to give opportunities for our students to benefit from an education here. And I think I was surprised he didn't mention the university at all.
Mm-hmm. We were talking earlier that apparently the ramp up for the pre-K program is longer than it may have seemed in the speech.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be decades long, because it's going to cost a lot of money. For example, I know that they're thinking about starting in the neighbor islands, but I know that the middle schools on the neighbor islands, they don't have much room for growth. And even if they do, I think you're going to be looking at constructing new classroom buildings. So that's not going to happen right away.
Okay. Well, I want to thank both of you for being here. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for joining us this morning, and thanks to Olelo for making this time available. We'll see you next time on Live at the Legislature.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capital.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators. From your district number to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community. If you're looking for detailed information concerning Hawaii State Senate and House hearings, please visit olelo.org/gov-archives. Videos are arranged by date, with the most recent at the top of the list. You can also search the on-demand media library by typing keywords into the search box.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the Public Access Room located in room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. The Public Access Room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process.
Aloha, and welcome to Live at the Legislature, where every week we will be sitting down with members of the House of Representatives to talk about concerns, issues, and legislation moving through the halls of the state capitol. This year, the House of Representatives has 10 new lawmakers. It is probably one of the largest and most diverse group of freshman legislators that we have had in a while. More than half of them are women. They range in ages from 34 on up, and they come from a variety and diverse professions. Joining us this morning are two of them. Representative Scott Matayoshi, he represents the 43rd District, Kaneohe. 49th District. I was still in the 40s. Kaneohe, Manawili, and Olomana. And also joining us is Representative Stacy Lynn Eli. She represents the 49th District.
43rd.
The 43rd District. And Nanakuli, Maili, and Kalailoa.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us today. So tell us, you both sit on the powerful Finance Committee. You've been going through committee hearings on the state budget. You have gone through an opening day. You heard the state of the state. So as our two freshman legislators, how has the experience been for you so far? Scott?
Oh, it's been incredible so far. I mean, it's been a lot busier than I could have ever imagined, but I'm really encouraged. Like you said, we have a very diverse class. We have an enormous freshman class. I've been very surprised at how fantastic our class is. I mean, I'm really enjoying all of the members of it. We have returning members, so they have a lot of experience to give and share to us, and we also have a lot of younger members, like Stace and I are both on the younger side. We're both 34, and I think that adds just a lot of energy and kind of just a dynamic feeling, and I'm just really looking forward to working with them all.
Well,
very
great,
exciting.
Great. And Stacey, what about you? Is it what you've expected?
I think it's been what I've expected, but a lot more. Just like Scott shared, just really excited to work with all my colleagues, especially our freshman class, because as you said, we are so diverse. So far it's been a really good experience, but very busy, a lot busier than I had anticipated. But so far it's been a great experience.
Well, yesterday we heard from the governor in his State of the State address. It was a very bold State of the State address in both delivery and in his vision and ideas. Stacey, what was your reaction to that?
I'm actually really, again, optimistic in what the governor has shared. It was very bold, but I think in the times that we're living, we have to be bold. The public that we serve is demanding bold decisions when it comes to education as well as housing. And so I'm looking forward, especially being on finance, to see how we can work with our governor, with our colleagues, to come up with a plan for our state.
And what about you, Scott? What did you think about it?
I thought it was, like you said, very bold. And the two things that I wanted to sort of highlight in his were his housing plan, so his adoption of Stanley Chang's Aloha Homes bill. I think that's very encouraging. I think we do need to take large steps to address the affordable housing and just the housing market in general by providing more supply in the market, and especially around transit-oriented development hubs. I think that's very important. I've always said, we are the state. The state is for the people. If the state land is not being used for the people, I don't know what we're using it for. So if we have state land that we're able to do to solve or at least greatly impact this housing crisis that we're experiencing, it would be irresponsible for us not to use it and not to use every resource we have to further that cause. The second thing I wanted to sort of highlight was that I was very encouraged about was his emphasis on early childhood education. You know, as a former teacher, I actually taught in Stace's district as a middle school science teacher. It is incredibly important that we catch these kids early, that we give them every advantage that they can have going into school so they don't fall behind. You know, I taught middle school science, and by the time they get to me, sometimes they'd be 2 or more years behind. Incredibly difficult for them to catch back up. We can't let it get to that point. We need to give them the tools that they need coming in the first place. And I really appreciate the governor's message on that. One of the concerns I've got, though, is that we're already about 1,000 teachers short a year. His proposal would add 300 new positions, and we're having trouble even filling the ones we've got.
Right.
So that's a huge challenge coming up for our state. His proposal will somewhat exacerbate the situation. Again, I think we're moving in the right direction, but I think we've also got to be thinking of the other problems that are going to come up and how we're going to address those problems as well. So teacher recruitment, teacher retention, teacher training, we've got to support these teachers in the classroom so that they can be there for our kids.
Well, you know, as we said, you both sit on the finance committee, and he had bold ideas, but they're also going to cost a lot of money. So, any thoughts on that?
I think with session just opening, we are at the beginning of the process. We have been going through info briefings prior to that, but I think right now we need to work together to come up with a plan, and I think it would be premature to say that we can't do it. I think it's doable. We just have to make sure that we plan, for our state in the long run and plan smart. So I have faith in my colleagues that we're going to work together, to see what we can do to address the issues as discussed, because my community has been experiencing for years a teacher shortage, not just in my high school, but in my elementary schools. So that is something that we are really concerned about, and we're going to tackle it.
Well, let's get down to the specifics of your priorities for your district. So, Stacy Lynn, what are some of the issues facing your district, and what do you hope to do about them?
So my district has not received capital improvement monies for the last few years. So my priority is to make sure that we see them this time, to address issues like transportation. We have a 5th lane that we are trying to work with DOT to get done between Helilua and Hakimo on the Waianae coast. My schools also, have facilities that need to be maintained and addressed. So these are the priorities for my district.
What about you, Representative Matayoshi?
My focus has always been the schools, and as you know, the windward side, it rains pretty constantly. That takes its toll on the infrastructure for schools. I know that the Kapuna Hall Elementary School parking lot, it looks like it got an artillery bombardment. The potholes are so big. So
it looks like the Poly.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, right.
A little less patched.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that our schools have large infrastructure concerns that I'd like to address, and that's sort of what I'm pushing with CIP funding. Another problem that I've been speaking with the DOT about, Department of Transportation about, is getting another left turn lane put in by the Burger King. Right now, we've got a huge median, so we've got the space to put in another left turn lane and to lengthen them. Right now, that left turn lane turning onto Likelike Highway is backing up 2 or 3 blocks, almost to Kaneohe Elementary School, which puts those kids in danger as well. And when people are cutting around, it's just kind of a health safety concern of mine. So I'm really working with them to try to put in that infrastructure if we can to make that turn safer and to make it so that people don't have to cut through the surrounding community to sort of shortchange that intersection.
So what I'd like to find out, and maybe I should have asked you this in the beginning, but why did you decide to run for elected office, Stacy?
I was born and raised in my community. My family's been there for 5 generations, so pretty much forever. But we have, generational issues that we are facing right now in our state. And I just felt that my community needed a representative, that could really be the voice of our district and really fight for the things that we need. We talk about change and wanting to see better and do better, and that's what I want to do.
What about you, Representative Matayoshi?
I think for me, it really turned on my background as a public school teacher. Those years I spent in the classroom really made me realize the disparity that exists in our state between the haves and the have-nots. I wanted to make a difference, and as a teacher, I felt like I could make a difference in the lives of about 150 kids at a time. But after that, they'd go on to another grade, and I'd sort of, I could keep in contact with them. I could help them out some, but it wasn't the impact that I was hoping for. As a state legislator, I'm hoping to make an impact on thousands of teachers, each impacting hundreds of kids. I feel like my efforts can be magnified. I can do more at this level. And not that public school teaching is not important at all. I mean, incredibly, incredibly important. I really feel like we're shortchanging education by not investing in our teachers and investing in our schools, shortchanging our future, really. But I think that the way to make a bigger difference for me was through the state legislature, and I'm hoping to do that.
Well, one of the things that will be coming up, as you know, the CONAM was voted down, so funding for the Department of Education will be a big issue right now, this session, and always is a big issue. What do you say to the folks who say, but we need to take a closer look at the DOE, at how they're spending their money, in 30 seconds or so? Stacy?
We need to do that. I mean, that's our responsibility, as legislators, as public servants, to really take a look at it. We appreciate what the DOE does, but we still have to take a look at what's being done to make it better.
Scott, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I'm glad that they're starting to modernize their systems. I think that accountability is a huge thing. Knowing where the money is going and where the money is being spent is incredibly important. From our last finance briefing with the Department of Education, they are rolling out a better electronic system so that the legislature and I believe the public will have access to the information they need to know where the money is going. But we need to make sure that the money we're giving the DOE is having the greatest impact possible. And to me, that's in the classroom. Having teacher supports outside the classroom, fantastic, but really we're short teachers, and that's leading to incredible classroom sizes, which any teacher will tell you that is devastating to the kids. Having a classroom of 30, 35 kids, very, very different than having a classroom of 20 or 25 kids. So I really think that we need to pull our resources maybe from teachers that are currently in more supportive roles at the district office, pull them back into the classroom and distribute that load.
Well, I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot from both of you, Representative Eli from Nanakuli and Representative Matayoshi from Kaneohe. And thank you for joining us today for Live at the Ledge. We will see you again next week, bright and early. Aloha.